Right. There are events that are so impactful that your life becomes a matter of what came before and what came after. This isn't just a personal thing, it's something that can happen to a town, a country, or even the world. The event may be something positive, like getting married, or something negative, like getting married. 2020 gave us an event that created a watershed on both a global scale and, for some of us, a personal one, after which our lives would never be the same. The event was the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is my personal survivor's story. When the pandemic hit, I joked that I'd know if I'd caught COVID because it would kill me. I was wrong about knowing if I'd caught it, but I was very close to being right about it killing me. I've been a martyr to chest infection since 1998 after a bout of pneumonia contracted in Florida shortly after I got married. After that, I caught colds and flu very easily, and they tended to get bad very quickly and stick around for longer. So I was obviously worried about COVID. When the Johnson government finally ordered a lockdown and put all the COVID rules in place, much too late, of course, I followed the guidelines on safe distancing, personal hygiene, etc., to the best of my ability. The wearing of masks, however, proved impossible for me because on the one occasion I did wear one, I suffered a troubling panic attack as it triggered a post-traumatic stress response from an earlier incident in which a neighbour tried to choke me to death when I answered the front door one night. Other than that, however, lockdown was a breeze for me. I had spent so long locking myself away in my flat that it was second nature. That said, I ended up having to go to the shops more often because people had been panic buying essential items and no one was answering the phone in any of the local shops, so I couldn't check whether what I wanted had been delivered. The streets were fairly empty, so I was able to cope with the small amount of people I was forced to meet. My ex-wife was advised to stay at home on furlough rather than go to work, being as she was in the high-risk category for catching COVID. This was a situation that continued from the start of lockdown until September. Then she was forced by the school she worked at to return to work or be sacked. The government hadn't issued definitive advice to schools regarding people like my ex-wife, so she returned to work, not wanting to lose her job. This was a disastrous move for both of us because in October 2020, a member of staff went to work carrying COVID into the school. She was on the reception desk, so everyone passed her as she shed viral loads of COVID on everyone who entered the building. She didn't report being positive for COVID until a few days had elapsed, and by then she'd infected my ex-wife who, like myself, was unable to wear a mask. My ex-wife had been dealing with legal matters concerning her inheritance since 2019, and because she doesn't have a computer, a landline, or broadband, she was making video calls to Florida using my laptop in my flat. Not knowing she'd been infected, she came to make another call to her lawyers handling the financial matters and walked the virus right into my flat. We had both been observing all the guidelines, yet we both ended up catching COVID. A couple of days later, I started exhibiting symptoms. A national newspaper had produced a table of the symptoms of colds, flus, and COVID so that people could identify which one they had, given it was the beginning of the regular cold and flu season. According to the table, my symptoms resembled flu, as I didn't seem to have any of the common COVID symptoms. So I took some cold and flu remedies and thought nothing of it. The over-the-counter medication I took had no effect, so I took the unusual step of calling NHS 111 to confirm whether I should be worried or not. Obviously, they thought that it was the flu as well, but they decided to send a non-emergency paramedic team to perform an examination, which turned out to be a life-saving decision on their part. The team arrived, and noting my low oxygen saturation level, they decided to take me to the local hospital. I was given some time to pack some things in a case, on the off chance that I was going to be admitted, and we left. On the way to the hospital, my oxygen saturation level continued to drop, and they became increasingly worried. It was the late hours of the 17th of October when we arrived at the hospital, and I was left in a wheelchair in a room off the A&E department with my possessions on my lap, waiting for a nurse to formally admit me. We'll pick up the story in the next video from the moment I was collected to be taken onto the COVID ward until a bit of time had elapsed. I won't go into more specifics, but you'll understand why after you've seen the second video.